Michelle Johnson Major grew up in Hickory, North Carolina, and was raised by two hard-working parents who had a normal, healthy relationship and raised Michelle with a great balance of love and discipline. So when Michelle grew up and met her now ex-husband, she thought she was going to live happily ever after, just like her parents. On the contrary, Michelle became entangled in a relationship that quickly spiraled down a dangerous path. Michelle Johnson Major grew up in a quaint little home just like this one, nestled on a farm in rural North Carolina.
We didn't have neighbors, so it was real quiet. Raised cows and chickens and things like that on the farm.
Michelle knew she wanted to be an artist when she was only 5 years old.
I can remember I was always the kid, the teacher put my pictures up on the bulletin board, and I was the one, draw this for me, and I just always loved it, and that's my passion.
She would go on to earn her BA in art education from Appalachian State University. And since then, Michelle has been a devoted teacher, all the while pursuing her passion for art, always painting on her spare time. Her life seemed almost perfect until she met who she thought was the man of her dreams.
It was a whirlwind courtship. I met him in church on Christmas Eve, and we both sang in the choir, and he had just joined our choir during this candlelight service, and it was, I mean, you can't ask for more romantic than lighting candles, and he was just so into everything I said. He just wanted to know more and more about me, and just, I really enjoyed the attention that he paid me, and we just, after a couple dates, we never left each other's side, and we liked it like that. And within 6 months, we decided to get married.
Michelle Johnson Major was going to live a fairy tale life. She had met the seemingly perfect man at the seemingly perfect place, but she was not prepared for what was to come.
My ex, he was actually a drug addict. So when that was introduced into our dating relationship, was a drug relapse. And that caused a lot of problems because there was violence involved. Whereas before, there had never been anything except this honeymoon romantic dating period. And once this drug relapse entered, there was name calling and just, he shoved me. But after the relapse ended and he cleaned up, he could easily say, well, all that was because I was on drugs. That's not really me. And I believed that until eventually those behaviors started carrying over into our regular life when he wasn't having a relapse.
To escape, she began to paint fiercely, articulating on a canvas what she couldn't say to anyone. The relationship took a dramatic turn when she became pregnant. She said he didn't want to compete for her attention.
Knowing what I know now is that abusive narcissistic personalities, like the world, it's revolving around them, and we're just all players in their play. And when so much attention was focused on me and this growing baby, he couldn't handle it, and so he got angry. He started accusing me of faking being sick, saying I was whiny, pathetic, weak, and just a victim all the time, and saying those kind of ugly things to really kind of beat me down. And
Michelle's ex-husband then beat her down literally, twice. When she tried to leave him the first time, he shoved her, took her keys away, elbowed her in the face, and broke her nose. Shortly thereafter, her ex-husband did attack her again and told her he would kill her next time if she tried to leave. Michelle then went to his family and finally asked for help. Then when they called him on the phone, he said he was going to plant drugs in her car. Then when she returned home, he had slashed 94 of her paintings.
And he said, well, why don't you go upstairs and look around? And I did, and more of the same, butchered paintings, and he followed me up there, and he wound up knocking me to the ground. He said, I am going to kill you this time. and he proceeded to pin me down with his knees on my shoulders and strangle me until I lost consciousness, and he thought I was dead.
After Michelle fortunately woke up, she called 911. The abuser was a fugitive for several hours. Fortunately, he was apprehended and sent to prison. For how long, we'll find out. As for Michelle, she had to remain in hiding for several months.
The night he was finally arrested, he told police that once he got out, he was going to hunt me down and kill me and take my baby. So I didn't have a place to live. The police said, you've got to leave your home or he'll find you. And so a couple from my church wound up taking me and my newborn baby in, and we lived with them in hiding for about 8 months because his mother bailed him out, and he wound up being free for almost a year until he finally pled guilty to assault by strangulation.
What's shocking is that he only went to prison for 28 days for the crime he committed against Michelle. He returned to prison for 7 months for possessing drugs and violating his probation.
It doesn't seem like it's a crime if it happens in your home. You know, he couldn't go up and strangle some stranger and he wouldn't get 28 days if he came up and strangled a person in a coffee shop.
Right.
Because it happened in our home behind closed doors and I was his wife. Okay, then that's okay. You can go to drug rehab because that's more important.
Michelle told me she went through hours of therapy, traditional therapy, but also went through art therapy as well. She painted dark images on her canvas to get rid of the darkness within her soul. She then went on to paint positive images, and those paintings are seen throughout North Carolina.
I mean, I'm living with a newborn baby, trying to survive and trying to go about the functions of day-to-day life, but I'm living in fear. I was staying up every night, peeking through the blinds, thinking, when is he going to come and get us? When's he going to kill us? And, you know, I just had a big, long talk with God and said, how do I learn to live? Because you spared my life, but I'm not living. I'm surviving, but I'm not living. And the answer kind of came in a painting, and I did a painting, and I've got it here, and it's got a sun, and it's got a path that leads back to the sun, and the sun says hope, because my friend said you need to paint some paintings of hope. But on that path, I wrote the words, be a voice.
Michelle then came to the realization she wanted to be that voice of hope to other women in a crisis. And just 3 weeks later, the local newspaper called her and wanted to hear her story. Shortly after that, she began telling her story many times over.
I tell my story all over the place. And, you know, I tell it to teenagers especially. They don't get it. They're like, why would you stay there? And I tell them, you know, it's so hard to explain the mindset of a victim. You start out like you're here with your self-esteem, but all these fights, they start whittling your self-esteem, your self-worth away. He just really had a way of excusing all the bad behavior, and I bought it hook, line, and sinker because I was living in it. And I didn't have that outside, you know, because I'm not telling my mom that this is going on. I'm not telling anybody. So I didn't have that outside perspective to say, Michelle, something's not right here. That's not right.
She also is part of Voices of Survivors. She's an inspiration to women across North Carolina and the United States. She is indeed a survivor. Thank you for watching.